This is Generation Stadia, giving you that daily dose of everything and anything Stadia related, and today there's a ton of Stadia news to cover. The latest Stadia community update has given us a ton of much needed information, including the fact that there's 10 timed exclusives that are going to launch on the first half of the year. Not only that, but we have to talk about the recent Vulkan update that's definitely going to help Stadia's gaming performance in the near future. And we also have some very interesting comments made by a developer over at Tequilla, the creators of Guilt. But before we dive into all that news, let's quickly go over some game updates. Up first is Darksiders Genesis, which has received a brand new patch for the Stadia platform, and unlike most times, we actually have some patch notes to go along with it. There are plenty of bug fixes included, but more importantly, there's a bunch of additions as well. Now, I'm not going to go over every single one of these, but I will say the one that stands out is a new difficulty mode called Mayhem. In terms of difficulty, Mayhem mode will fit right in between hard and apocalyptic. I'm not sure how many of you actually played in apocalyptic mode, but let me tell you, it was an insane spike in difficulty, so having this mid-step between the two is very welcome. I also gotta give huge props to the developers over at Airship Syndicate for making these patch notes available to the Stadia community. The link to them will be in the description below. Up next, we have yet another delay, but whether it means a delay for the Stadia release is still up in the air, and I'm talking about none other than Cyberpunk 2077. In case you haven't heard the news, CD Projekt Red recently posted a message stating that they won't be able to make the April release date. But as we know from the last Stadia news update, that was never going to be the case for Stadia, so it's up in the air whether or not this means that the Stadia version is going to be pushed back further, or if it will release day and date with the original release. Either way, the game has officially been pushed back to September 17th, and I'm kind of hoping the Stadia release will launch alongside the rest now. And that wraps up your Stadia game update. Now it's time to move over to the general Stadia news. Don't worry, I'm not going to keep you waiting to talk about the new big Stadia community update that just dropped, because the whole community really needs to hear this. Basically, we now know that over 120 games are set to launch this year, and 10 timed exclusives will be launching at some point in the first half. This news may come long overdue, but honestly speaking, I'm just so glad it's here. Now, I've been on record many times saying just how well Stadia works, but my one complaint was always the lack of games, and up until now it's been quite a problem. Technically speaking, at this very moment it still is a problem, but at least we know things are changing. 120 games also isn't a small number. To put it into perspective, Stadia could launch one game every 3 days. Obviously that's not the case, but it's just to show you just how many games that really is. I'm gonna say it's safe to assume some of these games are gonna be older ports. Personally speaking, I'm really hoping for Monster Hunter World to find its way to Stadia. Now, while I was really surprised by the announcement of so many games being on track to release this year, what really shocked me was the fact that 10 of those games on the first half are gonna be timed exclusives. We already know what some of them are, but I'll be doing a more in-depth video on that matter alone. Right now, let's also go over the additional things they included in this community update. Google has stated that over the next 3 months, Stadia users can expect some features to be added. Those features being support for 4K gaming on the web browser, additional assistant functionality when playing through the web, additional Android phone support, and wireless gameplay on the web using your Stadia controller. These updates do seem rather focused on the web browser experience, but honestly speaking, they're very welcome. I personally have been waiting for the 4K support coming to Chrome for the longest time, and I'm really happy it's here. I should also note that if the feature you're wanting most isn't listed here, I would tell you not to worry. Chances are that they're still working on it, but right now this is what they can talk about. Now, before I move on to the next bit of news, I do want to clarify one thing that I keep seeing online, and that's people saying that the 120 plus games include Uplay Plus. I just want to make it very clear that not every game available on Uplay Plus on PC is going to be ported over to Stadia. Remember that they have to port these games. There's costs involved with that, and they're not going to waste their time on some of those titles. Either way, that wraps up Google's Stadia community update. Let's move on to the next bit of news. Recently, Vulkan got an update to 1.2, and it seems really promising for Stadia. Hi Gwen, who works as Staff Technical Solutions Engineer at Google Stadia, had the following to say. Stadia is thrilled to see the long-awaited features in Vulkan 1.2. Not only are they going to be a game changer for Stadia, but for the Vulkan ecosystem as a whole. Vulkan 1.2 brings remarkable improvements to HLSL support in Vulkan, and the increased flexibility and performance gains will enable developers to take greater advantage of the GPU than ever before. Stadia can't wait to see how developers leverage the new timeline semaphore, descriptor indexing, and finer type subgroup operations in graphics and compute for their next generation titles. Now I'm gonna keep it real with you, I actually have no clue what that means, but it seems like a positive thing for Stadia overall, so I thought it was worth mentioning. What I do know is that Vulkan has a lot of potential and any updates are very welcome, especially if they make running games even better for Stadia. Now let's move on to the last bit of news today, and that comes from Tequilla Works CEO and creative director Raul Rubio. He recently did an interview with GameIndustry.biz and had this to say. This is my personal opinion, but this is like the early days of Steam in a sense that this is when people were complaining that it took too long to download, and then the download would stop and people were complaining the price was exactly the same as a boxed game. It's going to get better. In fact, one day when we look back, people will wonder why people were questioning streaming at all. I'm not talking about Stadia specifically, I'm talking about streaming in general. Now I bring this statement up specifically because I think there's a lot of truth to what he's saying here. I was there when Steam first launched and I remember all the issues it had getting off the ground initially. Many PC gamers at the time saw Steam as a threat to PC gaming in general. And then there's the fact that Steam didn't really pick up until Half-Life 2 was released and many people were forced to install it. I fully agree with his statement that streaming is gonna be a big part of gaming in the future. Whether or not it's Stadia doesn't really matter because the fact is that Stadia has proven one thing, and that's that it works. He also went on to mention the fact that we have yet to see all the cool features that are being worked on in the background, and I really can't wait to see that flourish. Either way, I really want to know what you think of his statement comparing the early days of Stadia to Steam. Do you think he's right, or do you think Stadia compares differently? Let me know in the comments section below. Also, I'll be posting the link to this interview in the description below, so be sure to check it out as it is a very interesting read. And that wraps up this Stadia news update. If you enjoyed the video at all, be sure to hit that like button as it really does help the channel out, and if you're wanting more content like this, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell as well. Today's end of video update is going to be a quick reminder about our community Discord as it's about to hit over 500 members. There's already a good group of people who meet up consistently to play Grid, and I want to start making that happen for other games as well. Either way, I'll share more about that in an upcoming video. Anyways, thanks for watching. This has been Generation Stadia, giving you that daily dose of everything and anything Stadia related. The Gen S community is over 3,200 strong and growing by the day, and until next time, I'll catch you in the clouds.